beginning.
All right. Ms. Darton, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Eric Darton has written about the World Trade Center, the buildings themselves. We appreciate your insight. More of our coverage after a break. This is the tallest building in New York City today, the Empire State Building, as it was before, as it is today. We should note that the Empire State Building, for viewers in New York who are going to be able to see it whenever we get our signal back from New York, the Empire State Building is going to be lighting itself in red, white, and blue in honor of the city's loss and in honor of a nation moving forward. Welcome back to CNN's continuing coverage. I'm Joey Chen.
I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington.
We begin this hour with the latest developments in America's new war. Let's get the latest coverage developments here. President Bush is back at the White House now, returning from Camp David. Mr. Bush said America will begin a crusade against what he called a new kind of evil. And he had a message to people who are getting ready for the work week ahead.
Tomorrow when you get back to work hard like you always have. But we've been warned. We've been warned there are evil people in this world. We've been warned so vividly. And we'll be alert. Your government is alert. The governors and mayors are alert that evil folks still lurk out there.
Today, CNN has learned more about the extent to which the attacks on Tuesday left the government flat-footed. Only after the third attack, the attack against the Pentagon, did the government evacuate the White House, the Capitol, or the State Department. The order to evacuate came a full 12 minutes after the government was put on notice that the fourth plane appeared to be headed toward Washington. At last word today, the FBI continued to search an apartment in Delray Beach, Florida. Agents there are removing boxes full of materials. At least one of the men suspected of commandeering one of the four planes is believed to have lived in the apartment. CNN has learned that the FBI has taken 2 material witnesses into custody, and warrants for 2 more material witnesses have been issued as well. Across the nation on this Sunday, Americans lifted their voices in songs of faith and in love of country. Thousands gathered this afternoon for a flag-waving rally in St. Paul, Minnesota. Among those leading that event, Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura. Polls are indicating very strong support for the nation's leadership in the early days of this war against terrorism.
President Bush is urging Americans to return to work on Monday, but his administration has been working nonstop since Tuesday's horror, working on a plan to combat terrorism. CNN White House correspondent Kelly Wallace joins us now with a look at what Mr. Bush is calling a crusade. Kelly?
Well, Wolf, the crusade is a worldwide fight against terrorism. President Bush trying to pull together an international coalition. He worked the phone some more this afternoon, speaking with King Abdullah of Jordan and President Vicente Fox of Mexico. The president today calling terrorists evildoers. He said they have roused a mighty giant. He, though, called on the American people to be patient. He said this campaign against terrorism will take a while, but he said the U.S. will win this war.
After huddling with his national security team at Camp David, President Bush returns to the White House and urges Americans to try to get on with their lives.
Just like the farmers and ranchers and business owners and factory workers have a job to do, my administration has a job to do, and we're going to do it.
Back to business, but not business as usual, as Mr. Bush and his aides mount a full-court offensive to reassure a jittery public.
We're pursuing over 40,000 leads.
They can't destroy America.
Things have changed since last Tuesday. The world shifted in some respects.
The administration facing a delicate balancing act, encouraging an anxious country to go back to work while making the case its campaign against terrorists and those who harbor them will not be an overnight solution.
And, it will take time. It's not a matter of days or weeks. It's years. It's going to take the support of the American people, and I have every confidence it'll be there.
The support is there now. In a CNN USA Today Gallup poll, 86% said they support a military action even if it lasts several months. Support drops, though, to 66% if a conflict lasts several years. For a public angry about how these tragedies could have happened, Attorney General John Ashcroft says he will send proposals to Capitol Hill in days to strengthen laws to track terrorists.
We will develop the tools.
While Secretary of State Colin Powell calls for a return to normalcy.
If we stick in our bunkers and walk around afraid, they will have won. Well, we're not a fearful people. We know how to overcome tragedy, and we will restore a sense of normalcy to this society, to this country very quickly in a way that will impress the world.
And to underscore that point, Treasury Secretary Paul O'Neill tomorrow will ring the bell at the opening of the New York Stock Exchange, and Major League Baseball players return to the fields tomorrow as well, while the Bush administration continues to work on plans and its response, Wolf, to the worst terrorism on U.S. soil. Wolf.
Kelly, as everyone knows, the U.S. economy was not exactly robust before Tuesday's attack. How concerned are they at the White House about the impact of all of this on the economy?
Well, the administration is definitely concerned. In fact, the president was asked this very question today. He said, no doubt about it, that these deadly attacks definitely have affected the U.S. economy. So there is some concern. There was concern, of course, as you noted, even before. But the president also looking forward to the opening of the markets tomorrow, to people getting back to work. That's why you're hearing this message from the president and his top aides, trying to encourage people to get back to work, to get back to their businesses. But Wolf, definitely the White House will be keeping a close eye on the economy and the opening of the markets. Mr. Bush is expected to meet with his economic team tomorrow exactly to see just how things go in this week ahead. Wolf?
I think we'll all be taking a close look at that economy. Kelly Wallace at the White House, thank you very much. Joey?
Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld is warning that the upcoming war against terrorism will involve unconventional tactics and a lot of time.
It will take a broad, sustained effort that will have to use our diplomatic, our political, our economic, our financial strength, as well as our military strength, and unquestionably unconventional techniques. And it will take time. It's not a matter of days or weeks. It's years. It's going to take the support of the American people, and I have every confidence it'll be there.
It's years, says the defense secretary. And with that in mind, a lot of young Americans shocked by Tuesday's events are finding themselves at military recruitment offices to see what they can do for their country.
I will support and defend.
I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
You're going into the Army Reserves for a 6x2 enlistment, 6 years of reserves, 2 years of inactive.
I enlisted the U.S. Army Reserves Monday of this week. The benefits are great. I mean, I'm in school. I'm trying to get through college. I can have it paid for.
I went to recruiting office about a month ago. I enlisted into the Army, field artillery. I want to go back to college.
I was with my family on the day that these things happened, and, you know, they obviously showed a lot of concern for me and my safety.
I got scared, knowing that I'm coming up here the next day to leave. I was scared that at first I didn't want to go in anymore. I called up all my friends and I don't know if I just made the biggest mistake of my life.
We discussed it, and, you know, and I told them how I felt. I told them that I was proud to be doing it, that I personally had a renewed sense of patriotism, and that anything that I did to help, you know, help the cause to defend freedom would be just fill me with a sense of pride.
It's being brave right now is what we need. I'm looking forward to leaving for basic training. I'm looking forward to doing my job, serving my country, and if I have to go to war for something, I'm doing it for the right cause. I'm doing it because it's my duty as an American and as a soldier in the military.
There has been talk in the wake of the terrorist attacks of reinstating the draft. The Selective Service says a draft would be much different this day and age than it was during the Vietnam War. Joining me now from New York is Lawrence Korb, who served as Assistant Secretary of Defense during the Reagan administration. Mr. Korb, thanks for joining us. First of all, your opinion, is reinstating the draft necessary right now?
Absolutely no. As you saw, you have a lot of young men and young women seeing this tragedy. They have a renewed sense of patriotism. They're going down to sign up. And last year, even before this, the military had met all of its recruiting goals. And whatever else this war may be, it's not going to be very manpower intensive. If you do use forces, there'll be unconventional forces, special operations forces, probably air power. So this is really not something that would necessitate increasing the size of the armed forces, and you really don't need a draft.
But what about those who argue that for what the Pentagon calls homeland defense, it's going to require a whole lot more people working at airports and other secure locations, and the military might be the best source for that kind of manpower?
Well, basically, the Homeland Defense is not just a Department of Defense mission, but the National Guard should be given that as their primary mission. In fact, that was recommended last March by a group that was set up by the President and the Congress to take a look at the whole situation for national security. And I suspect that will be their primary mission, and they will not then be put in a position where they'll have armored units to go fight a large land war, which is a decreasing probability. So I think what you'll see is they will get that mission and they will get the resources, and they'll be the ones that'll take the lead in dealing with that, both the Army and the Air National Guard.
Why does the Selective Service, which of course still exists, believe that a draft, if it were reinstated, would be a lot different today than it was during the Vietnam War?
Well, because they would use a lottery system. But they would not get rid of all of the problems from Vietnam, because if you allow deferments, for example, for clergymen, and you allow it for medical people, pretty soon, once you allow one deferment, you'll have a whole host of others. And the number of people that you need would be very, very small. At most, you'd have to draft 50,000 people out of a group of, 5 or 6 million young people turning 18 each year.
You know a lot about manpower shortages in the military. Where are the major shortages right now?
Well, the major shortages are those skills that are in high demand in the economy, pilots, for example, but that situation may be changing with what's happening to the airlines. People with specialties in the information area is another place that you have it. But the military has really begun to adjust. They put a lot more efforts, a lot more money, a lot more recruiters in the last couple of years, and in the last fiscal year, they met all of their goals.
Are the military leadership satisfied with the professional nature of the U.S. military as opposed to what used to be a draft service?
Very definitely, because the all-volunteer force is also a very professional force. People stay in for longer. In this day and age, you cannot learn all the skills that you need and be effective in a two-year period of service, which draftees have. No, all of them, if given a choice, would not want to go back. And given the demographics, it wouldn't make much sense, because we as a country have never been able to decide who shall serve when not all shall serve, and you need only a very, very small portion of the youngsters in this country each year to come into the military to make it effective.
On this issue of the draft, do all 4 branches of the U.S. military speak with one voice, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marine Corps, or are there nuances of difference?
No, they all pretty much speak the same. Now, initially, when we ended the draft in 1973, for about 10 years, there was a great deal of concern, particularly in the Army. But that has changed, because they've seen that what you get as professionals, people stay longer periods of time. I think the turning point was the Gulf War, because they saw how superbly those youngsters did there, because unlike Vietnam, where people were in for short periods of time, these units had been together a long time, and the soldiers, as well as the sailors, airmen, and Marines, had really learned their skills.
Lawrence Korb, thank you very much for joining us.
Nice to be with you.
Thank you. And not just the Bush administration, but also members of Congress have been very hard at work this week. CNN's Jonathan Karl standing by on Capitol Hill, where both houses are taking the first steps towards fighting this new war. First of all, John, what's the mood on Capitol Hill as far as reinstating the draft is concerned?
Well, clearly this Congress is in a war footing. They are going on several tracks, getting ready for an all-out war. But one thing they are not talking about, Wolf, is a draft. As a matter of fact, we asked the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Carl Levin, what he thought about the need for the draft. His response was pretty much typical of what we've heard up here.
This isn't going to be that kind of a war.